All right, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the LA Sports Brotherhood. It's me, Ryan, with my brother Matthew, here to recap the Dodgers versus Padres in Seoul, South Korea. Baseball's finally back, Matthew. What do we got for game one?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had Glass now going for the Dodgers and Darvish going for the Padres, who would both get through the first two innings with no runs. In the bottom of the third, the Padres finally scored with a single from Bogarts. The Dodgers were going to tie it up back at 1-1 with the Hayward sac fly. In the bottom four, Glass now would get in some trouble, but got out of it with just one run on the board. So the Padres took a 2-1 lead. Then the top of the eighth, Kike ties it with a sac fly, and then a glove malfunction gives the Dodgers a 3-2 lead on a Lux ground ball. And then Mookie and Shohei both single and give the Dodgers a 5-2 lead. And Phillips comes in to close it out, and that's game one of the series. 5-2 win for the Dodgers.
Game one of the series, game one of the season. Notice you said a lot of sack flies and, error, talking about how the Dodgers are scoring. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, maybe even from the whole two-game set, but for sure, at least for me, thinking about the offense in game one, I guess we can get right into it. 13 men left on base. Run it with the team with runners in scoring position. 2 for 14. Only Mookie and Otani had hits. They were very crucial ones at the end of the game. Literally, they were 0 for 12 before that. Yeah, so game one ends with a win, no matter how ugly it might have been watching at 3 a.m. here in LA. But yeah, so what stood out to you? First thing that comes to your mind when you think of game one.
Yeah, I mean it was a good pitching matchup between Darvish and Glasnow. To me, I thought Glasnow looked pretty impressive. Take a look at his pitch mix. He threw 39 four seams, 25 sliders, 10 curveballs, and just three sinkers. What stands out to me is the lack of curveballs. I think he didn't really have a feel for it. And, it made it tough. He's essentially pitching with two pitches, which makes, the out even more impressive. 5 innings, 2 runs, not a lot of hits. I think biggest thing biggest thing was the control. Like I said, he didn't have the curveball and he got behind in a lot of counts. Uh, Really, the only inning he got into trouble was the fourth inning. It was because of the walks. He started off with two walks, and the biggest plus was that there wasn't really any damage. He I don't think anything even got to the warning track. And they definitely have some power at the top of the order. Machado, Tatis, Bogarts. It's a pretty good top of the lineup, and he didn't really give up any damage. I thought he managed the game pretty well. I think areas to improve. He needs to be consistent with that curve because in at bats, uh, it's important to have more than two pitches. I think to give you an example against Bogarts, he started off with a fastball high, and Bogarts was really late. And Bogarts has already seen him because he played in the AL,
Yeah.
same division with the Red Sox. And I think Bogarts, in his mind, he's eliminated the curve because he doesn't have a feel for it, and it's just fastball slider. He already throws a fastball. And Glasnow actually executed the slider pretty well. It broke low and away, and Bogarts was able to just put the bat on it, and it was a single, and that was the first run of the game. So I think the biggest X factor for him is going to be the curveball and having uh, all three pitches working at the same time.
Yeah, 100%.
What do you think? What do you think about Glasnow's performance?
Yeah, no, the three pitches thing by far the biggest thing. Looking at his pitch count, he threw 77 pitches, 30 of them were balls. That's a not a good ratio. Actually, I think that's been the case for every single starter for both the Dodgers and the Padres these two games. Just so many balls, so many walks. Dodgers as a team and had 9 walks. Drew 9 walks. We'll get into that a little later. But yeah, it's ironic, honestly, thinking about Glasnow not having control of the curveball, because his biggest issue was only that he only had two pitches, but it was the fastball and the curve that were his two pitches, and he tried desperately to develop the slider he has now. Well, he calls it a cutter, but no way in the world is that a cutter. It does not move like a cutter. But yeah, so and I think the reason is that he's changed the way he throws the curveball. It used to be a kind of looping 12-6. It was really effective, but it was kind of a pop out of his hand type curve. And I don't know if you noticed or anyone watching has noticed, but every single curveball he threw bounced like 2 feet in front of the plate. And the thing is that that's intentional, not with that little care or with that little control. But he stopped throwing the looping curve. He throws curveballs out of the same slot, excuse me, as his fastballs. So that he wants them to come straight and then just drop. It's no more up and down. But that's the issue you get with changing your curveball in that way. It could, if you don't have it, if you don't have the grip, if you're choking the ball, it's just you're never gonna throw it for a strike. You're almost never gonna throw it for a strike, even when you have it going for you. So when you don't, it's really tough. But like you said, wasn't his day. I think actually Glasnow literally said in his the post game press conference like it wasn't my day. But despite that, 5 innings, 2 earned runs. He worked around some trouble. His fastball had great life. The curve, the slider, this actually looked really good. So frankly, this is an encouraging outing for me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the slider worked really well. I mean, there was I don't know, you obviously saw that bat. Tatis, he just tripled up on it, swing and miss, swing and miss, swing and miss. It looked really good, and I think that's going to be important. And watching him pitch, the pitch mix is similar to really it's similar to Kershaw with the slider,
Yeah,
the slider, the four seam, and the curveball. The slider that it's more of a cutter break than like a big looping like sweeper.
yeah,
And I think the that's going to be really important facing lefties. And he executed a few times where it just kind of cuts. You know how because Kershaw's slider to righties is just lethal. And I think Glass now he just needs to be consistent with it, consistent with it. Because when he was, it was working really well. But yeah, and then I like what you said about the curveball. If he can get control of it, that's going to be huge because when you have the fastball slider coming out of the same tunnel, you see a big loop that could be bad, every now and then if he leaves it hanging. If he has a third pitch coming out of the similar same tunnel that just drops, I mean that's going to be lethal.
yeah.
But yeah, he obviously needs to get control of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I trust that he will, because like you said, this is the first time he's really, at least the first time I've noticed that it's straight up just a different tunnel. It's a different curveball essentially. So yeah, I think he'll get the hang of it because it looked good in spring, so he's had the feel for it before. But yeah, something about that stadium, I guess, being in Korea. No, there were so many bounced balls from both teams. Every single starter, they
Yeah,
just didn't look great. But yeah, so going from pitching that was a struggle, but he fought it out, to what I think is the most encouraging sign of the entire weekend. If I'm being honest, for the weekend, as if it's a weekend series of the both games, to me is the bullpen. I think we kind of saw the plan from Dave Roberts, the guys he's going to go to, which we kind of expected, especially with no Bruzdar or no Trinan. But Ryan Brazier, 1 inning, he looked dominant. He was dotting everything up. Hudson looked good. Joe Kelly looked like Joe Kelly, and Phillips looked like Evan Phillips. Both of those things mean different things to me, but they were just great. 4 innings pitched, only 2 hits, no other base runners. Joe Kelly was even made quick work. So yeah, I mean I don't know how much we have to say about it, but what did you think about the bullpen? How did has you think
yeah,
this is the order you're gonna
yeah. I don't
get?
want to. Yeah, I don't want to get too far into it. I mean, to me, it was the highlight of the 2 days, like you said. I think one guy I'm most happy about of the whole roster was Ryan Brazier. I mean, he looked incredible.
Yeah,
And I think, I mean, they busted out, three guys throwing fastball, slider with Brazier, Hudson, Phillips. I mean, that was lethal. And I think, I mean, yeah, it's clear what that's his order. Only Bruzdar instead of Kelly, in my opinion. Like those are his guys, power righties that can get strikeouts, that can get outs.
yeah,
And I mean, I think we're gonna get into the second game. You see his guys, and then you see innings eaters. I think
yeah,
it's made in the first two games. It's made clear, what the roles are gonna be.
yeah, 100%. So yeah, you mentioned the second game. I want to just bring this up before we get into it right now because it's going to be a much bigger talking point in the second game. But as a team, their offense, runners in scoring position, 2 for 14. They were 0 for 12 until Mookie and Shohei had those back-to-back singles. Huge hits, but 0 for 12, just can't cut it. 13 men left on base in a game where they scored 5 runs. and they needed an error to continue an inning to get the last three. So yeah, that was it was a tough watch. Being up at 3 a.m. it was tough to. I mean, you were encouraged. They were taking the at bats were great. It's just when we needed someone to bring a run in, just couldn't happen. But yeah, we like I said, much more important game two. So actually, do you want to get into game two, Matthew?
Yeah, so game two, a much different story. Obviously, we had the much anticipated debut of Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and it did not go well. First inning gave up 5 runs, which we'll dive into later. Dodgers already down to a 5-0 deficit, but they continued to chip away. They got 1 run back in the first from Smith and a sac fly in the second. But then Michael Grove comes in, 2 more runs, 7-2 Padres in the third inning, 8-2 Padres, and then the end of the inning, 9-2 Padres. And like I said, the Dodgers would continue to chip away. They get another run, another one, and then a Mookie Betts double makes it a new ball game, down 9-6. But then the Padres would continue to add on 10-6 after the fifth inning. Then the first home run of the Dodgers for Mookie Betts and just the MLB in general puts them in it again, 10-8 Padres. But then they would continue to add more, and to the seventh, they're up 12-8 on a Muncy error. But then Smith would put it back to 12-9, and then Mookie Betts again, and it's 12-11, the bottom of the eighth. We're thinking we're back in it, but then Manny Machado with a 3-run home run ends off the scoring, ends off the game, ends off the series. Padres win 15-11, and the team split the series in Seoul, Korea.
Yeah, it's tough. I think this loss is particularly tough because everything we saw from the offense, in spite of the massive struggles of a few players I'll get into shortly, it was exactly what you were hoping for and expecting from a lineup this deep, where you go down 5-0, and very genuinely, I was not worried about our ability to win. Even when it was 9-2, immediately the next inning they get a couple runs back, and I'm like, okay, this lineup has enough power, we can get into it. It's just besides Yamamoto, which I'll let you get into right now, this the the distinction between our good bullpen and our hey, maybe they'll keep us in it while we try to chip away bullpen is pretty big right now. Just the talent level, the execution, it's just different. But Yamamoto is the biggest story in baseball right now. Well, the biggest baseball story in baseball right now. So what did you see from him, Matthew?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of laughs, a lot of jokes from the rest of the league, but we don't really care.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me was he wasn't himself, which in a way was a good thing as Dodger fans, because had he, been feeling right and just got shelled, it would have been a different story. But I mean, that was not him. They, although I will say, I did expect, a slow start from Yamamoto. I mean, after all, it's his first game against MLB hitters, and I do still think his stuff will play. I just think one of the weirdest thing was he got behind in some counts, which is not like him at all. I just think he didn't have a feel for his stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think he'll come back to the States. I mean, there's 7 games in between this game. We hope as Dodger fans this is just a game I'll forget. But I mean, he started off first pitch of the game, fastball ground into center field, and then there was nothing that was just absolutely like again, no home runs, no crazy like super hard hit balls that you ever thought was going to leave a yard. I think it was just a lot. I mean, they just kind of put together a lot of hits, and I mean it was one inning. I just think
Yeah. No, it's tough because I mean, as we mentioned with Glasnow, 43 pitches in one inning, obviously bad, but only 23 strikes, which means you threw 20 balls. And I actually agree with you when you say that it's kind of a good thing if you're guaranteed a Yamamoto struggle start, you'd rather it look like this than him just all of his stuff being beaten. He still had two strikeouts in the inning, and the strikeouts, the stuff was electric. Like you can see what you expect from him. But it's not that he was like nibbling around the corners and people were they're just spitting on his stuff. His were balls out of hand. Like they're non-competitive pitches. And that's just not who he is. Like ever, he's never been that. But this is the second time against the White Sox. This is why he was getting touched ups too. All of his off speed that were balls that typically you can get to chase or even like they're competitive. You have to stay in the box. Just out of hand ball, like not even close to the spot. So that's the biggest thing for me is that it's not even a matter of assessing how his stuff looked because they just were not strike. Like they're in no world would they be a strike, and batters recognize that immediately. So when there's a fastball in the zone, they're gonna be all over it. But again, I think that's a good thing in a Yamamoto struggle because knowing the fastball is coming and it was the only pitch he could semi control, he wasn't getting shelled. He was getting hit because anyone could hit in 97, but it's not like they're just lining it up and shelling him. It's just tough. He had a struggle of a day, and I think he'll get back after it. But yeah,
Yeah, so
go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I think that's important to look at, what the ball because he threw 23 strikes, 20 balls. What kind of balls are if it's stuff not playing and they're taking it, that's a concern. But I just think he didn't have his stuff, and I believe he said it just wasn't his day. And I mean, because the none of his off speed he really had feel for. You
Yeah,
know, the first runs of the game was on a splitter that just hung. It was just a flat
yeah,
splitter
it was
that's
just
not
there.
a pitch we usually see from him. Cronenworth hit it. Um, Campusano's double or his hit. The curveball was actually pretty good. I think Muncy could have at least
Oh,
stopped it,
that's another
but
thing. Yeah,
that wasn't too concerned. And really, there's two outs in it, and there's three runs on the board. And one of them's from a hit batter, and then like I said, the splitter hung. I think if we get out of it there, it's not as bad. And then
yeah,
the last score was on just a flat cutter to Wade, and he hit it pretty good. So I think yeah, he just didn't have a feel for stuff. And I think that's a long story short. In terms of the way it was breaking and you know the balls that he threw, I don't think he had his stuff. And like you said, even with that being said, the fastball wasn't there wasn't home runs, there wasn't, ground rule doubles. So I think his stuff is definitely going to play against MLB hitters, and that's the main thing.
yeah, yeah. So, uh, where we go from here, I'll give you two options. Because I have stuff to say about both. You want to stick with pitching? Or you want to get into hitting?
We just finish off pitching
Okay.
if you want.
So
You can say what you need to say.
I mean Michael Grove is not a great pitcher. I think this is a role he needs to occupy. And it just wasn't his day. He's gonna have a lot of those more often than not. If I'm being perfectly honest, I don't have much to say about him. Cal Hurt was fine enough, I guess. No one. Again, we walked six people. It's not going to be great. What I want to focus on personally is JP Fireeisen. In our bullpen previews, which were recorded before this, if you stick around, you'll see those tomorrow. Actually, uh, I did not have him on any version of my finalized bullpen, like fully healthy, or even right now. I was very much considering dropping him. Um, and the reason is his spring training was awful, and you saw exactly how it happened in spring training here as well. He gave up the only home run for the Dodgers the end of the two games in a dead stadium with balls that I would argue looked pretty dead as well, especially in that first game. Um, his stuff doesn't pop. He has good spin rate, but he's sitting 92, and he's wasn't a strikeout. Like it's not a spin rate fastball that's high in the zone and people are just whiffing through. Because even when he was great with the Rays in 22, he pitched 26 innings and he had like 24 strikeouts. So he's at best a strikeout per inning guy, a 9 Ks per nine, which as a reliever I don't value if I'm being completely transparent. But the reason I single him out is because even though we had someone like Vesia who struggled last year, but he's been good multiple times and he is a high strikeout guy, Fire Eisen was a guy that Roberts turned to. And I think with bullpen usage early in the year, the most important thing for me is the roles that they're put in. Like in game one, Joe Kelly, we had top of the lineup. Joe Kelly was the guy that Robert saved to face 1, 2, 3, and I think that's going to be an issue. But we don't have Bruisdar, we don't have Trinan, so I was like, fine, and he's performed there, so we know what it is. Fireheisen's the guy that he saved. It was 12-11. This is crucial hold time, and Fireheisen got that shout. And I think it's well, he got it. Just to be clear, none of the relievers that pitched yesterday were going to pitch today. So if this were during the swing of the regular season, I think things would have been different. But it just shows that he does have a level of trust for him, and I I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Fireheisen. I think that's going to be a big. I hope it's not a big talking point, but there's potential that it is, especially if Roberts feels like he needs to trust him. What do you have to say about the bullpen?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty similar. I mean you could see the difference in the two games. You know, first game is the key guys, the guys that are gonna get the ball in postseason. Second game is, oh, well, we're losing. Just try to get outs. You know, just fill out the rest of the innings.
Yeah,
And I don't think, like I said, after that inning, I was like, okay, I know Fireheisen is exactly who we expected, at least me and you. And I think, when Trinan's back, when Bruzar's back, we won't really have to deal with it because another thing is, I mean, Yamamoto pitched 1 inning, so I mean, anytime
yeah,
something like that happens, there's going to be runs scored on the rest of the pin. It's a little bit unfair to them.
yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, I don't think there's a guy that pitched except maybe Vesia just because he's a lefty that we're going to need in crucial time to to be really good.
No, that's
But
definitely
yeah, I
fair.
mean, it is what it was definitely frustrating, our lineup, which we'll get into next, doing what they're able to do, but just not being able to hold the Padres and get back into the game. But yeah, I mean, obviously 15 runs pitching was not great, but it's one of those things you check the box score, you think, oh, is there a problem with the bullpen? No, there's not. We saw four guys yesterday who looked elite, and then two of our three best guys weren't even playing. So
Yeah,
yeah, the overall bullpen will be great. Yesterday was not great, obviously.
yeah. No, I don't want to. I'm not being an alarmist about the bullpen. I actually feel incredibly confident, just based on who they are and their track record and what we saw yesterday. Or yeah, yesterday. Feel 3 a.m. 2 days ago feels like a month ago. It's crazy. But yeah, I don't know. Something about Fireheisen, he's giving me Ryan Madsen vibes a little bit from 2018. And Ryan Madsen was who he was because we literally had nobody else, and we kind of picked him up, and he was this fake guy that was a veteran or whatever, and I despise him, so I won't get into it. But I don't know, something about Fireheisen. I just hope we don't have to see him too much. The stuff just does not play for me. But I think our biggest strength today, but also potentially, I think the most not alarming, but potentially one of the bigger issues this year showed up today for me and for us because in our lineup preview again coming soon, we mention a specific run of three hitters that we even tried breaking up in our own personal lineups that are all great, like actively good players, but they can kill us sometimes. And those players are Max Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez, and James Outman. They hit back to back to back in the lineup, both games. And game two, they were combined 2 for 12, 3 walks, which it is what it is, 5 strikeouts, and they left 14 people on base in their at bats. Again, team total of left on base is 12 because that stat only accumulates when it's however many people are on base when the inning ends. But individual players left on base is the stat where it's based on how many players you leave on base after you're at bat. So that's why it's more. But like I was saying, I'm gonna bring them up now. James Outman, 6 by himself. Teoscar Hernandez, 4 by himself. Muncy, 4 by himself. Muncy had 2 hits, but they're both with bases empty. It's I love these dudes, like genuinely, but having such boomer bust guys back to back to back after four legit on base guys that are going to be on base all the time. I don't know. It's a weird thing because I like them and I don't want them out of the lineup. I don't want them traded. They're going to do great things, but they're going to be games, and I this is what I'm worried about in the playoffs. Where you need someone to make contact, to do something, and these guys can whiff game after game, and it wouldn't be a surprise to anybody. So what are your thoughts about the lineup overall? I don't want to just specify these three guys.
Yeah, I mean I mean that's the biggest story when you're looking at what went bad. I mean, real quick, and give out shout out to Mookie Betts, one of the best players in
Yeah,
baseball. He's
incredible.
unbelievable. Will Smith with 4 hits in the second game. Otani was pretty good overall. Freddie just wasn't in Korea. We'll see Freddie when we get back.
Yeah,
He'll be back to normal. But yeah, I mean that's the and then Hayward with a good game.
yeah, it's true too.
Lux, I think looking at both games, Lux is Lux. He's gonna put it in play. He's gonna hit balls pretty hard to bounce right in front of the right fielder. Just a lot of singles from Lux. But yeah, he had good swings and yeah, I mean that's the big problem. That's the only problem to me in terms of the lineup is just those three together. And
Mm,
it's not even I mean to be honest, it's already the point where when I think it was in game one, honestly. I think we had runners on second and third, and I saw Teoscar come up. I was like, oh no, because him and Outman back to back. And I believe Hernandez struck out and Outman grounded out, if I'm correct. But yeah, it's just tough especially when Teoscar's in those big moments, they're not going to let him see a lefty. It's going to be a righty, and like you said, we need something. We need contact, and those two guys, the whiff rate is going to be trouble, especially in the play. I mean, we see it every year when guys again in the playoffs we face elite pitching and it's just a lot of strikeouts,
yeah.
and this is definitely concerning. I think they're going to have to change their approach come playoff time. They're going to need to think. They're going to need to single out a pitch to just get it in play because they have to. And yeah, I think they're incredibly talented, incredibly strong. Great hitters. But I think they're gonna if this is a problem all season, all through 162, they're gonna need a change of approach. I guess I'll shoot it back to you with a question. Do you see a lineup change down the road?
Um, I'd not soon. Again, I don't. This isn't like alarmist stuff. Scored 11 runs. This lineup's going to be great, and those three are going to be a huge part of it. So I don't. If this isn't panic stuff, but to your question, I actually do think if this type of construction issue persists, I think you just switch Hayward and Outman against righties because Hayward's not an elite contact guy, but he's has more bat to ball skills. He's able to get you something. And if we just had, I mean, that's why Hayward was great. He had 3 runs, he had 2 hits, he had an RBI even after Outman and Hernandez and Muncy ended innings with guys on base. He still had RBI. It's I think that could be a quick fix because I don't want any of them out of the lineup. I want to make that clear. It's not this is not a their bad thing. It's just we mentioned it before the season even started because it's just the nature of how they play. And also it's Mookie, Shohei, Freddie, Will Smith. The first three are 400 on base guys. Will Smith's a high threes guy. Like they're gonna have so many opportunities, and Muncy and Teoscar are gonna get their home runs. Outman, you hope can, but when they're not getting their home runs, it becomes I might want a contact guy to break those guys up. But we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be fine, especially once we start getting in ballparks and atmospheres that allow for more to drive the ball a little bit more. Because I don't know, that ball was just dead. I thought the Mookie home run, I guess Machado too. I was shocked that they felt confident that those balls are going out, just because I every single fly ball after like the second inning of the first game, I was like, okay, this is just a fly ball. Nothing in the air scared me as a on when Dodgers are pitching. But yeah, a couple other things. So we'll give Muncie those three. In our notes, I call it the second big three because they could have a big impact on the game just the other way sometimes. Um, some notes I saw pitching wise, or in terms of like pitch selection, Mookie is going to see a ton of left-handed relievers. I don't think, except for Mike King, who wasn't a reliever, they wanted length from him. The Padres brought in a reliever multiple times to face Lux slash the top of the lineup. They were lefties 100% of the time. So Mookie has a chance if he can get his splits right against lefties to just absolutely devour everything, and he did today. Also, I think having Hayward ahead of Outman can similarly get more lefties in for the Muncie Outman slot, which would keep Teoscar in a position to face more lefties, which is what we need. We want as many lefties as possible. But yeah, so those two things I saw, especially the Mookie thing, he's going to get so many at bats against left-handed pitchers, and hopefully he can capitalize, which I think he very much will.
And Mookie was really good against lefties last year. I remember, I believe it was 2021. He struggled against lefties,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's gone. And I mean, it's going to happen. They did it both games, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and especially because they do it. The bottom lineup, Lux wants to see a lefty. Lux, I mean, we know Lux gets on base. If he gets on base, you turn it over to Mookie. I mean, he's going, yeah, he's going to have so many opportunities against lefties. And I think to bring it back to the whole lineup, I think it felt it felt really good. I think this is a team where even when we're down, I think we're in it just because there's so much power,
Yeah.
there's just so much talent in general. I think they can get back in any game, which is amazing when you have such a good bullpen. And I mean, I don't think not just Yamamoto. I don't think we're gonna have too many games like this where there's just we give up 10 runs in like the first part of the game.
Yeah.
So I mean, overall, I just think it's a good lineup. And to clarify, I think, like you said, the second big three, I think that's more of a playoff issue because I mean, we can't help to think about the playoffs when it's been 10 years
Yeah.
straight and so many losses. I think during the year they're gonna hit home runs. There's gonna be runners on for them. They'll hit home runs. They'll win a ton of games. This is more of an issue when it comes to you're playing the best teams in the sport against the best pitchers in the sport who are always there's always going to be bullpen arms that are going to get strikeouts, and I think that happens a lot with guys that swing and miss. Like Bellinger in the past, even though he's had great memories, obviously we're a little bit scarred from AJ Pollock back in 2019.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, as for the regular season, it's not the end of the world. Like again, there's a chance all these guys put up great numbers. But yeah, it's just more of the fact you have three skill sets back to back to back after the best,
Yeah.
you know, uh, front part of the lineup in the whole sport. Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. But honestly, obviously split the series. Never want to do that. Never want to do that against someone in the division with delusions of trying to compete with the Dodgers for the division. But still, I'm feeling good about the team. I love what I saw from Mook. Love what I saw from a lot of important guys, and there's room for growth, which is great. But yeah, so without further ado, I think that'll be it for our recap. Stay tuned. In the future, we got some more projections coming out. We're going to start rolling out some more detailed analysis of specific moments in series and stuff. Check out for that. But for now, you got anything else to say for him, Matt?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, we'll see you soon. Go Dodgers. Peace.